to turn the conference over to Marisel Hernandez, Chair of the Chicago Board of Elections. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning. I will call to order the regular board meeting of the Chicago Board of Election Commissioners. My name is Marisel Hernandez. I'm the chair. Seated with me via audio are Commissioner William Kresse.
Commissioner Kresse is present.
And Commissioner Jonathan Swain.
Present.
Okay. And next item on the agenda is the consideration of the agenda. Any recommendations for changes? If not, we will proceed. But before we proceed, I just want to take a minute to say that this election was by far, and I don't think there's any dispute about it, the most challenging election the Board of Election Commissioners has ever had. And I cannot thank enough the entire staff at the board for all their work. You know, we had hiccups along the way, we had obstacles, we had just issues that came up that we couldn't imagine, and we had to resolve quickly. And everyone helped out on this. Lance, as the executive director, along with Charles, the assistant executive director, you were a great team to head this election, and I cannot say enough about the great work both of you did to make this such a successful election. From the registration department, community services, warehouse, information technology, pre-election voting and logistics, vote by mail, early voting, finance and procurement, legal, our administrative assistants, our contractors and consultants. All of you work together to make this election one of the smoothest. And I just want to extend my heartfelt thanks to all of you for your great work. Thank you.
Hear, hear. Hear, hear. Commissioner Kresse would like to echo those comments. And especially when you see what's going on in jurisdictions around the country, we work like a well-oiled machine. All of our people have been working since this pandemic started in mid-March, since the primary, working towards this goal. And even when we had a hiccup with the Sharpie pens, we were able to address it. We were on it, and it was not a problem in Chicago. So just my heart is just so full of gratitude for the hard work of every single person at this board. We're working together, and we still have a few more days of allowing vote-by-mail ballots to come in, but I couldn't be prouder of the people at the board. Thank you so very much.
Yeah.
And Commissioner Swain, I don't think there's any much more to say. I'll echo the remarks of both Chair and Commissioner Kresse. Congrats all around.
Okay, thank you. And by the way, the fact that we were able, and this is kudos to, again, the executive director and assistant executive director, and our consultants and everyone all around, we were able to put together this super site at the United Center and to have the drop boxes at Wrigley and guaranteed rate field, in a matter of days before Election Day, it was incredible. Again, thank you so much. And now I'm going to proceed with the regular agenda, which is the next item is the approval of the minutes of the regular board meeting of June 9th, 2020. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved by Commissioner Swain.
Second, is there a second?
Second by Commissioner Kresse.
All those in favor?
Commissioner Kresse votes aye.
Is there another aye or a nay? Okay, I will vote aye.
Okay.
Commissioner Swain voted aye.
Okay. The minutes have been approved and have passed. Next item is the Executive Director's report. Mr. Goff.
Thank you, Madam Chair and board members. First of all, before I start, I'd like to say it's been an honor working for all three of you. We put together one hell of an election. I received phone calls from around the United States after the election, and people have watched what we were doing and congratulated us, so we should really be proud. And also, they watched our office on City So Real and thought it was fabulous, and they said kudos for what we did. It was truly a remarkable staff that we have. I have one more board meeting before I retire. I'd like to save that to congratulate different members of the staff, but the staff did an unbelievable job. What we did out at the Department of Corrections, what we did at Wrigley, at the United Center was marvelous. I have to tell you, it was everybody did a great job. We have other people to thank. I know, Rachel, you're on the line listening. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for all of your help. Office of Emergency Management and Communications, they did an excellent job. It was really a team effort of everybody in the city. So I just want to say thank you on that. Okay, now, just to let you know, we also had one of the largest complement of election workers serving that we've ever had in this agency. We had 11,834 judges that were assigned and 238 that were swear-in. So we had a huge complement of judges. Our election coordinators, we had 1,824, and we had a bunch of standbys that were there, and that worked out real well. We are still counting, as Commissioner Kresse mentioned. We still have approximately 62,425 ballots remaining to count. They've all been opened, and they'll be counted in the next couple of days. But we will hit our 100% soon. The returns on the ballots are just incredible that we've gotten. I just can't tell you how well this agency had worked and operated. I have a written document that I'm turning over to the board members, and if I could end that right now and let you know that I will give another report on the my last meeting.
Okay. Any questions?
The Commissioner Kresse would just like to add, with all of the people we're thanking, I think we all should also thank the people of the city of Chicago who stepped up, came out, became election workers, and who came out and voted in really record numbers. So kudos to the people of Chicago as well.
And Kresse, Commissioner Kresse, what you said, the poll workers, our judges of election, were the backbones of this democracy. And have them come out and work with all the different complications that we've had, they did an excellent job.
Yes, they did. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Goff. Next, we'll hear from our Assistant Executive Director, Charles Holliday.
Madam Chair, Charles has a personal commitment now, so I will be filling in for him.
Okay. Okay. Do you have a statement or?
Just let you know that everything's going well. November 20th, we have to have most of our bills in because we have to turn these bills over to the state so we can have that grant fund pay for some of these bills. So we'll be working with the purchasing and finance department to try to get everything paid. And we are contacting our contractors and everybody else that has done work for us to get those bills in as soon as possible.
Oh, okay, great, thank you. Then we will hear from communications. Sarah Hamilton.
Hey, good morning.
Hey,
I'm gonna let Rachel take the lead here because she's been working on this since the beginning, and she's going to tell you about all the great work that we did and all the exciting things that we saw through the work. So, Rachel, take it away.
Okay, Rachel Lengthy. Thank you, Rachel.
No problem. Good morning, everyone, and thanks for having us. I'll provide a quick recap here. But, in the last 2 months leading up to the election, we've been working with the board and you all to build awareness and drive turnout among Chicagoans and focusing on areas with historically low voter turnout. And as you know, we focus on earned media, stakeholder engagement, digital advertising, organic social media, and ongoing collateral and message development that was adapted, as we went. So we created at the outset the Plan Your Vote campaign and the branding to serve as the foundation for key messages throughout, and then over 60 pieces of custom collateral that was shared with our stakeholders and then on the board's owned channel. We created a foundational bilingual toolkit, and it had, a voting calendar, flyers, posters, palm cards, animated graphics, talking points, and videos. And then many of those pieces were translated into Spanish and Polish and Korean and Chinese with the help of your team and translators. And then, we worked on more custom material based on awareness days to really help engage our stakeholders and communicate key deadlines as we went. And we had additional opportunities to support PSA scripts for the Bears and provide digital billboards to the city and support collateral for the United Center, their interior and exterior. So there was a lot of really great content that was shared across the city. For earned media, at the outset, we organized the communications plan with, steady, proactive, real-time media leading up to Election Day. We staffed and managed and secured over 250 media placements in coordination with your team and your spokespeople. We staffed 11 media events and announcements, with the mayor's office, with the Cook County Sheriff's office, with community organizations, with the United Center, the Chicago Cubs, the Chicago White Sox. All of those received really positive coverage, and we also had our spokespeople on WGCI and WTTW's Latino Voices and Black Voices, and there was national coverage with your bilingual spokespeople on Univision and with NBC Nightly News. So some of the highlights, but just a lot of really good work from the folks on your team. For stakeholder outreach, at the beginning and throughout, we built a list of over 200 stakeholders leading civic, religious, community, business groups across the city with constituents who really reflected the targets that we wanted to connect with. Ultimately, we secured commitments from 104 of those organizations who in turn shared our Plan Your Vote and custom collateral leading into Election Day. And so we kind of saw that across, newsletters and websites and on social media. And, with National Black Voter Day and our pre-trial material and different custom pieces, organizations that those resonated with, we saw a really good engagement. So, the Chicago Urban League and different political leaders and community activists and influencers. So we just had a really positive reception from folks across the city. And then for digital media, both organic and paid, we put together for the board social channels what ultimately became a multilingual content calendar with over 100, scheduled posts that drove engagement and awareness leading into Election Day. And then we had a paid advertising campaign in conjunction with that, and we created 12 animated and static bilingual digital ads that ran from October 2nd to November 3rd on Facebook, Instagram, and Google Display. And week over week, we saw that traction really build. So we were hitting industry benchmarks as we went, serving over 1.1 million impressions. We secured more than 11,000 clicks and engagements with our target users on those ads. And one of the top performing platforms was actually Instagram. They drove 6,000 of those clicks, and we saw really solid engagement with 25 to 35-year-olds, which aligns with the voter turnout we ultimately saw. So that was just an interesting note. So in close, it was a multifaceted, fast-paced campaign. It supported a very well-run and executed election process by the board, and we were grateful for the partnership. So thank you all.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, thank you, Rachel. It was a very successful campaign. You, Sarah Hamilton, Maura Farrell, all, were actively engaged, and because of that, I think we had a very successful campaign. So thank you.
Madam Chair?
Okay.
I want to echo those comments. I do have one quick question, Rachel. Can you go back and say again what you said about 25 to 34-year-olds?
Yeah. So with our digital ads, we saw what we can see this on Facebook, and then we saw really great engagement on Instagram, and the demographics are aligned there. And so the greatest engagement with our ads, whether it be clicks, likes, comments, or visits to the page, was among that age group of 25 to 35-year-olds.
Great. Well, let me just say I'm very pleased with the work that you all did. For a long time as being on this board, I thought it was important for us to articulate the board's message around voting and what needed to be done to raise some profile on the election. And so I understand this election probably had the most profile of any election we've ever had in America. But that added value of planning your vote and the messaging and the different channels in which we sent the message through, I think was excellent. I appreciate your outreach on social. I thought it was great, and I also appreciate, as you just echoed, the outreach to younger voters and the other communities throughout the city. So I appreciate that, and it's my suggestion that for every election, we engage in some sort of outreach like this to let voters know, even as the pandemic subsides, which it will at some point. Making sure we do something of this nature to communicate to voters how to vote, methods to voting, any information about voting. I think it would be helpful and come upon us to do that as well, separate and distinct from any candidate that might be running for election. So thank you very much for your work.
Yeah.
Commissioner Kresse?
Yes, Rachel, I was just wondering, should we be expecting a final written report from Kivett with all the various metrics that you have mentioned?
Yes, we've provided that final draft, and you should be receiving that. Absolutely.
I look forward to seeing it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And next we have strategic planning. Mr. Jim Allen?
Good morning, Commissioners.
Hello?
Yes, good morning.
Okay. Good morning.
Great morning, actually. So this is the best turnout Chicago's had in terms of raw numbers of ballots cast since 1984. So 36 years since we've had, by the time we count the last vote by mail ballots. I want to echo some of the remarks about thanking the voters of Chicago. I think having 802,000 ballots in the box before Election Day helped make our Election Day go that much more smoothly, along with 13,000 plus judges signed up just in the last few months with full awareness of what they were going to encounter. And it was just a spectacular day that reflected a lot of planning, a lot of making adjustments and preparations with pre-election logistics in particular, handling 500,000 plus vote-by-mail applications, community services, having to start from scratch on recruiting all these judges, the warehouse having to adjust all the supplies that they had to deal with for the first time with PPE, information technology, keeping pace with online applications that started instead of 40 days before Election Day, 4 months before Election Day. Hensley Company, which masterminded and we worked with closely on the mailings, and the Postal Service, which despite all of the hand-wringing and fears, especially in August and September, about how this might fall apart, we averaged outbound and return of less than 2 days across the city of Chicago. And I can't emphasize how important it was, Chairwoman, for you to emphasize the drop boxes in the final week, when we went from 50% mail, 50% drop box. Instead, in those final days, it went 80% drop box to 20% mail. So I'm grateful to you and Kivett for helping make sure that first time program was such a success. The United Center really stepped up. We were on speed dial with Rachel Levin from the mayor's office and Josh Dennis of the Office of Emergency Management Communications. They were there to offer Lance, Charles, and myself all kinds of assistance. We were able to run the full-page ads in the Tribune and Sun-Times and reconfigured the homepage for Election Day to focus on the 4 key areas, some of which we've never had before. Not only the precinct polling place, but then the 52 early voting sites, the 54 drop boxes, and then the ability to check the status of your vote by mail. Then worked with Myrna Webb. She was awesome throughout this. She kept pace with all of our formatted email responses from to respond to their email inquiries, and she worked with me closely to handle all the extraordinary requests that we were getting, or unusual requests. It was a pleasure working with Rachel, Sarah, and Maura, and the whole Kivett team on fielding election administration questions in the final 2 weeks from the media. We handled all the media conference calls on Election Day. We also had the emergency communications on the Sharpies, worked with Charles Holliday and Audra Lewicki on getting a text message to re-instruct the voter or the poll workers on how to instruct the voters to reduce the number of bleed-through incidents, and also to diffuse any fears that people had about the bleed-through. We had a minor incident with the pipe burst at Otis School, which had to shut down that polling place about 3 in the afternoon. But because the team was so battle-hardened from the primary, the contingency was right there and ready to go. We were able to shift voters to the Goldblatt's building and we were able to retrieve and secure all those ballots from Otis School, and everything came off without a hitch. We updated the web security as recently as the Thursday before Election Day with patches and password changes because of the fears that the federal government had expressed about making sure everything was tight. Our election results reporting system came off flawlessly. We worked to keep the website robust Wednesday. We had to amp up the server capacity because we were getting so many hits on different contests from president to state representative. Also in the last week, we had to handle the city budget hearing questions and requests, and we assembled all the documents on the follow-up questions for that. We've had several follow-up inquiries from voters and poll workers, generally positive. And lastly, media interviews to dispel the myths surrounding the Sharpies and follow up with the media on vote-by-mail, provisional ballots, and canvass and post-election updates. Again, I can't say enough about pre-election logistics, which had to handle normally 2/3 of our vote come on Election Day, and in this election, more than 2/3 of our vote came before Election Day. So that department was really put upon, and Clint and Sandra and the entire team over there really deserve a lot of credit for adjusting to a monumental change in our operations. And that's all I have, unless there are any questions.
Now,
Go
ahead, Commissioner Kresse.
Yeah, Commissioner Kresse, Jim, maybe Lance can answer it. I'm assuming that the vote-by-mail ballots coming in now are coming in as at a trickle, especially the ones that were postmarked before or honored before Election Day. Is that correct?
That is correct. We received the vast majority of the late arriving vote-by-mail ballots by November 6th, last Friday, and since then it's been a very small number.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And thank you, Mr. Allen. Thank you for all your work this election cycle. You're one of those who helped make it possible to have a smooth running election. Thank you.
It's been an honor.
We will proceed now with old business. Infrastructure projects and changes in election administration and voting equipment.
Madam Chair, we're going to have to revisit, we're going to have to look at how we run elections. And running elections in a pandemic, we need to make some changes, so that'll be another report. About the electronic poll books work better this time than they ever had before. I would like to thank Charles Holliday for actually handling the electronic poll books and watching over that. He did an excellent job. The voting equipment worked very well. We had a couple of hiccups, but everything else went very well.
Okay, thank you. We will now proceed to legislation. Mr. Lasker, anything?
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. There's nothing currently going on with the legislature, but I think that we should start focusing forward on the things that worked so well these past two elections during the pandemic, or at least this November, and try to push for a permanent access to these things, including the vote-by-mail drop boxes. That was a tremendous success, and it seemed that the voters were really interested in using them, and we didn't have any real problems with them. Universal vote sites on Election Day, Mr. Allen mentioned the school where the pipes burst and that precinct had to get shut down. That's not pandemic related. That could happen in any election. And to just be able to shift the voters to an early voting site, a universal vote site that was just a few blocks away, is a really great contingency. But again, these items were only authorized for this November. That legislation will repeal itself on January 1st. So I do hope that the state of Illinois took a good look at this election and how well their ideas for November work, but also see that they can be very advantageous even when there's not a pandemic going on. Same goes for closing the schools on Election Day. We did have these 13,000 plus election judges who signed up, many of them for the first time, to replace the vacancies of people who couldn't serve because of coronavirus. Lots of teachers, school staff, and students all served as poll workers, election judges, and they did a tremendous job. They're really great people to come and have do this. And so that's another thing that I would encourage the board to pursue. I know the board's been interested in these things for many years. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you. When does the new session start, Mr. Lasker? Do you know? The legislative session?
You know, I had that date down, but it's not until the next year.
Okay.
I'll follow up with you offline on specific dates.
Yeah, and I guess that's good because it gives us some time to get our thoughts together and recommendations to the legislature based on
Yes.
the 2020 both elections. Okay, thank you.
Yes, indeed. Thank you.
Yes.
And
Mr.
Madam
Goff?
Chair, that really falls into place that we're going to have a debriefing so we can go over what worked and what did not work, so we can then give that to our legislative people to let them know what's good and what's positive that we should continue.
That's an excellent idea. Okay. Write some kind of report and with our recommendations. Yes.
Yes.
That's a great idea.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Kresse, Adam or Lance, also a word of thanks to our friends at the Chicago Bar Association for the attorneys out in the field. How did that program work? Was that successful?
Commissioner, I did intend to address that during my legal report.
Okay.
A little further down the agenda.
Yeah, we'll just get to that. Anything else, Mr. Kresse?
No, that was it. I'll be patient.
Okay, thank you. Next item is new business. I don't think we have any. And now we will go to our legal report. Mr. Lasker.
Thank you again, Madam Chair.
Waiting with bated breath, Adam.
So let me just tell you that all across the board, it seems that the brand new team of field attorneys was a really big success. We've heard a lot of feedback from the staff members up in Election Central. We've heard feedback from election judges and from these field attorneys themselves, and it does seem that everybody thought it worked out quite well. We certainly had these attorneys actively engaged with dispatches from Election Central, helping deal with things. In fact, in the first ward there, the school that had the sprinklers go off or the pipes burst, the field attorney there was on the phone with me actually and was sort of quarterbacking the effort to get the voters up to the site and, more importantly, to get those ballots secured, to get the ballots and the results information to the receiving station without any interference. So it was really helpful. I do want to thank the Chicago Bar Association, particularly Beth McMean, its executive director. They assisted both our office and the Cook County Clerk's office with preparing an online application portal so that attorneys could submit all their information electronically, which of course makes it much easier for us to review that data. They made this platform available to all other local bar associations, and they contacted all those bar associations so that they themselves could recruit their own attorneys, and then everybody just entered their applications in through the same system. So that was extremely helpful. I would also point out that at one point, not necessarily related to election administration, but our liaisons in the Spanish-speaking communities informed me that they were getting lots of calls from people wondering if there were any resources on voting for judges, and we couldn't find anything in Spanish. I was just simply looking to see if there's anything in Spanish. I called Beth McMean at the CBA to ask if they had anything, and she said, we don't. And then 2 days later, they had translated their documents into Spanish. So the CBA was actually quite helpful in this election. We really appreciate that. Finally, as far as these field attorneys go, I just want to give a little special thank you to Michonne Sawyer. She is one of our longtime Election Central attorneys. She volunteered to step up and take over the election day, dispatching and management of the field attorneys, and she was really great in that regard. Did a wonderful job, and I heard a lot of positive feedback from the field attorneys about dealing with Michonne Sawyer. So thank you very much, Michonne. In addition to that, for the legal report, I of course need to thank our staff, every single department of our staff that operated nonstop, just with such dedication to getting this election done right. We've talked a lot about the really big challenges, the substantially increased vote by mail, the significant challenges that those folks in the polling places department undertook, registrations increased. But what I'd also just like to point out is that some of the departments and offices we don't normally think of also we couldn't have done it without them. The phone room, for example, with Sheila Johnson, they got that election central room split up onto 3 different floors. Everybody was social distanced. They had the handsets, separate handsets for people, so nobody had to share. It was really great. The mail room, with all the increased vote by mail, was really working well with the vote by mail department and with the post office. Our HR department had to deal with split shifts, social distancing, COVID matters, all the stuff that they don't normally have to deal with for an election, and they got it done. Our finance department had to deal with all kinds of new expenditures and vendors, monitoring which of these expenses qualifies for the grants. Same with our purchasing department on the grants. The number of procurements that our purchasing department had was substantially increased, having to make sure that the PPE was dispersed to all the early voting sites and precincts. So it's just been a tremendous experience. I think we are all exhausted because it's been, like I said earlier, one heck of a year, right? Preparing for March was all of a sudden such a challenge, and it's been a challenge ever since to get ready for November. But it turned out to be a very relatively smooth election day, and we've got great turnout. These voters, they showed up with participation, they showed up with patience, and they showed up with pride. So I'm extremely proud of everybody. It was really great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Okay. We have no financial report. Do we have any public comment today?
There are no public comments.
Mr. Lasker, is there a need for executive session today?
Not today, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Okay. If there is not, then I will entertain a motion to adjourn until our next regularly scheduled meeting on November 24th, 2020. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved, Commissioner Kresse.
Is there a second? I will second.
Mr. Swain, we're not there.
All those in favor?
Commissioner Kresse votes aye.
And Commissioner Swain?
Mr. Swain votes aye.
Okay. Motion passes and we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.